What's good, Guardians? Today we are looking into one of the most deadly and satisfying builds that we have in Destiny 2, as well as something I would never thought would happen. Using Consecration and good old Synthoceps, this build offers incredible crowd control and survivability, but if you were lucky enough to get your hands on one of the exotic class items for the Titan and the special mods that they have on them, we are going to be able to dive into some of that info as well to make this build even better, and for the first time, give the Titan invisibility. We'll break down everything from the subclass and mods to weapons and gear, and of course, the dim link will be down in the description as always if you want to go ahead and save it to your own Guardian. But let's burn this down and jump right in. First off with this build, of course, we're going to be going ahead with the Prismatic Titan, because for me, I'm using the class item, so I have to run Prismatic. However, you're going to want to do this anyway, because the whole build is possible with this subclass. Of course, for the super, I'm going to use the brand new super here, Twilight Arsenal, which basically summons 3 giant void axes where you can throw them one after another. They do weakening explosion, and they do massive damage here. And then, of course, after they hit the enemy, you can actually pick up any of them or your teammates as well and do more damage with them. This super, probably one of my favorite supers in the game. For the abilities here, you can use kind of whatever you'd like. I'm going to be using Thruster because I'm going to be spamming Thruster. That way I can get my melee back faster. Movement ability, go with whatever you want. I like to use Strafe Lift. And then now for the melee, this is going to be very important. You're going to want to use Frenzy Blade. And we're not necessarily going to be using it. I mean, you can if you want, but the main thing is that Frenzy Blade here gives you 3 charges of your melee, which is really, really important. For the grenade here, I'm going to be choosing the Shackle Grenade, and that's because whenever you throw the grenade, the enemy gets a debuff, which is Suspend, which is kind of what we want, because that's going to be able to give us more damage on our melee. And of course, this is what the whole build revolves around, aspects, and of course, the first one here is going to be Consecration. While sliding, you can activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap in the air. But while you're airborne, you can activate your charged melee again to slam the ground, create a second larger wave of damaging solar energy, and if the wave hits a scorched target, they ignite and explode into a giant, beautiful, huge damage explosion. But not only that, our second aspect here is going to be Knockout, which is also going to help us out, because critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attacks with arc energy and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. So you can go on an absolute killing frenzy with this. Defeating targets with melee attacks makes you amplified and restores a portion of your health, so we're going to be getting quite a bit of healing from this as well. And of course, defeating more powerful combatants increase the amount of health restored as well. So both of these working together is going to make this build what it is. Of course, now we move on to the fragments. All 5 of these are picked, so that way it's all nicely woven into one awesome build here. So first one, we got Faceted Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Powered melee final blows makes you and nearby allies radiant. So of course, whenever we're doing our powered melee, which is the whole thing, the slam, we're going to be going and getting radiant from it. And then also you have Facet of Courage, which your arc, solar, and void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted by darkness debuffs, like Suspend from our grenade that we're going to be using. And then of course we also have Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an arc, solar, or void buff, ability final blows grant bonus darkness transcendent energy, which is going to be nice for being transcendent. You're going to be able to get it very, very easy here. And of course, we're going to be having arc, solar, and void buffs all popping off here with amplified, radiant, and overshield. For number 4, we got Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration, and while transcendent, melee final blows will also start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. So this is going to be absolutely huge. We're going to get tons of healing off this. We're going to get tons of buffs off this. And of course, the final one we got is Facet of Purpose. Picking an Orb of Power will grant a buff for us. So the one we're going to be using based on our super is going to be Overshield. So picking up orbs are going to get us Overshield, which is going to in turn make us do more damage because we're able to get that buff on us. Everything is woven in perfectly here. Next up, we're going to be going ahead and talking about the Hunter's Journal artifact. And of course, we're going to be choosing the mods here. There's a lot of different mods that you can go ahead and choose from. I'm going to go ahead and single out 3 of them because I know for a fact these 3 make the build a lot stronger. So first off, the one I'm going to be choosing here is going to be Radiant Orbs. While you have a Solar or Prismatic subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you radiant. So of course, this whole build is kind of going to revolve around orbs as well. And of course, whenever we pick an orb, we get radiant. That's just kind of going to go ahead and stack on everything else. And of course, just make us have that bonus damage all the time. Second here, we got Galvanic Armor, which while you have an Arc or Prismatic subclass equipped, incoming damage from combatants is reduced while amplified. Whenever we do a slam here, we're going to get amplified because we're going to be killing enemies. It's that simple. We're going to get reduced damage there. But of course, the third one here is going to be called Shield Crush. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or like us, avoid Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. While you are amplified or radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. So when we're going to be getting Overshield here, we're going to get faster melee, and of course it's going to do increased damage, which is fantastic. And there's actually going to be a weapon that you can pair this with that I'll give you some information about a little bit later on. That's going to be perfect for this as well. But now we're going to go ahead and move on with the stats and the armor. So let's make sure we get this optimized right. The right mods, of course, can turn a good build into a great one. And right now, of course, 3 easy stats that we're going to go ahead and choose for this. First, of course, it's going to be resilience, because we can go ahead and get that damage reduction up to 30%, which is, of course, what we want. Second here is going to be strength, because the higher the strength, the less of a cooldown timer you have for your melee ability, which, of course, is really important for this. And then last, for a third option, if you need one, it's going to be discipline, because you want to get your grenade back as fast as possible as well, for the nice suspend and, of course, that debuff on the enemies. But of course, now let's go ahead and jump into the armor here. Always going to start with the helmet. First mod I'm going to go ahead and choose is a Harmonic Siphon mod, which basically just makes rapid weapon final blows create an orb of power depending on whatever your super has. So for me, it's going to be Void, so we're going to be using Void weapons. So this just makes complete sense. Next, of course, we got Hands On, which you gain bonus super energy on melee kills. We're going to be doing tons of melee kills, and you're going to be at your super back very, very quickly. And then for the third one, I have a Heavy Ammo Finder, just so I can get more ammo. Next up, we go on to the gauntlets. I will say here, if you do not have the class item, you can still absolutely run Synthoceps gauntlets here, but I will not be doing that. Of course, Synthoceps are going to be able to get you that crazy damage buff on your melee. For the mods here, I'm going to be go ahead and choosing Heavy-Handed, which your powered melee final blows create orbs of power, which we're going to be doing a lot of there. And then I have 2 momentum transfers. Causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. So whenever we get our grenade, we're going to be able to go ahead and toss that thing out, do damage with it, and it's going to be able to get our melee back. Moving on to the chest piece here, of course, we got Harmonic Resistance. Depending on your super, you're going to be able to get resistance damage from that. So for me, it's going to be Void damage. And then for the second one, I have Charged Up, which increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1, which is going to be very nice for what we're going to be able to use it for here. Concussive Dampener is going to be our third, which just basically reduces the incoming damage of area effect, which is going to be very, very helpful for certain things. Now we move on to the leg armor here. Keep it very simple here. I got 1 recuperation mod, which replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power, which you may not need because we have other health benefits here. So if you want, you can do a 3rd invigoration mod as well. Right now I'm running 2, which basically just reduces the melee cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. Now, of course, this is where we move on to the Titan mark. I'm using the exotic one for the Titan. This one is called Styocism. Maybe I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not quite sure. But the role that I got here is going to have Spirit of the Assassin, which makes finishers and powered melee final blows grant invisibility, which is going to be pretty huge here for harder content. And the reason I'm going to tell you why is because sometimes if you're in the trenches and GMs and you're trying to get some good damage off in melee, but you make yourself the center of attention and lots of enemies are shooting at you or trying to melee you, you going invisible can kind of give you those 10 seconds to kind of reposition or get the hell out of there. So that's why I'm taking this. There are other buffs here where you can actually do more damage with the slam, but the slam, in my opinion, does enough damage to where the invisibility makes it worth it in the end game. And then of course, the second one here, I have Spirit of Synthoceps, which improves melee damage when you're surrounded. Everything rolls into this exotic and also weaves into this whole build so nicely. It's just very, very easy to use. But on to the mods now, of course, I'm going to use 2 outreach mods, which reduces melee ability cooldown when you use your class ability. That's why I recommended Thrust, because you get it back very fast, and also I can kind of just spam it instead of having to wait to use the shield. And the last one here, of course, I'm picking 1-2 Finisher. Finishers restore melee abilities, and of course for the last one here I have 1-2 Finisher, which finishers restore melee abilities, consumes 3 or more stacks of armor charge, granting additional energy for each charge consumed. So we're going to be going ahead and collecting these orbs, getting armor charge, finishing enemies, and then boom, we're gonna have our melee back to be able to go ahead and do melee damage. It works perfectly. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the weapons here. There's actually not gonna be any really strict recommendations. I'm just gonna go out pretty quickly and say what I used for this build and what I liked. Of course, for your kinetic weapon slot, I liked using the call. The call felt very, very nice here. Something else you can go ahead and use is a shotgun with 1-2 punch on it, but either way, that first slot is gonna be whatever works best for you. Energy weapon here, I'll give you 2 recommendations here. First one, of course, a lot of people are using it, Graviton Lance. Graviton Lance right now has gotten a huge buff. It absolutely destroys. I definitely recommending this. This is what I use in the gameplay here, but that is because I did not have a Recluse with repulsor brace and destabilizing rounds. And the reason that is because whenever you use destabilizing rounds, it's going to debuff the enemies around them. And of course, whenever you get kills with a gun with repulsor brace, it's going to be able to give you void overshield back. So that's kind of a perfect role there if you ask me. And a build like this that kind of revolves around you maybe want to get as much overshield as possible, it would be absolutely huge here. Unfortunately, I didn't have one, but again, that's going to be my recommendation. And then for the heavy slot, you can really run whatever you'd like. Of course, Edge Transit is popular now. It's a void grenade launcher. I'm using it with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch. You can kind of run whatever you'd like here as well. That's the nice part about this build is there's really no restrictions about weapons, just kind of what's good right now, which is fun. But that's it for today's build guide. With this setup, you'll be able to destroy anything and everything in your path. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. If you have any suggestions of what you want to see next, please leave them down in the comment section below. Until next time, stay safe. Peace out, Guardians.